In Trump's Department of Justice, a common pattern has emerged. Go after who Trump wants you to go after and bring charges against them, whether they're justified or not. Or prepare to be pushed aside or fired so that Trump can find someone and install them who will ultimately pursue that prosecution. That appears to be what the DOJ has done in its removal of the lead prosecutor overseeing an investigation involving former CIA Director Brennan at our table and longtime Trump critic, according to two sources familiar with the decision. As MS Now reports, Maria Medeiros Long, a veteran prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, told colleagues in her office that she had recently told her superiors that there wasn't ample justification to bring criminal charges against Brennan. It wasn't immediately clear why the prosecutor was reassigned or who will take over the probe, but it comes on the backdrop of Reuters reporting this week that the FBI is ramping up its probe, including plans to question roughly a half dozen witnesses over Brennan's role in finding that Russia interfered in the 2016 election. Director Brennan is back with us, and also joining the conversation is Liz Oyer, former DOJ pardon attorney and federal public defender. Liz, let's start with you. Can we get your reaction to these changes and what you think happened, and just spell out for our viewers what you think the ultimate goal is here?
Yeah, this is becoming a very familiar and exhausting pattern where this administration starts with a target and then they search for charges that they can bring against a person that the president doesn't like. The problem that they're running into is that the career workforce of the Justice Department is not willing to make up cases out of thin air. Prosecutors are trained to start with the facts and the evidence and to see where that leads, not to start with the goal of prosecuting a specific person. And prosecutors are not able to convict people where no crime has occurred. So we're seeing prosecutors forced out, and these are very experienced prosecutors, forced out of their positions because they're not able to pursue or not willing to pursue the president's political vendettas. Maria Medeiros is one of these lawyers. She's been a prosecutor for 15 or 20 years. She is highly respected. She's a person of integrity, and she had to leave this investigation because she did not move fast enough to bring these charges that the president wants. It's very similar to what happened in Virginia with the prosecution of James Comey, in which a very senior, experienced prosecutor was forced out because he would not pursue an indictment of James Comey. We've seen that in virtually every single case that Donald Trump wants to bring. Exactly.
Director Brennan, one of the aspects of this that is troubling is DNI Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard, also targeting a whistleblower, an ex-inspector general in a criminal referral to the DOJ. Now, this is the invested into the call of Trump's first impeachment. His first impeachment, he calls Zelensky and says, we want you to look into our pal, Biden. And this is happening in 2019. He was impeached for this. When you look at that, and then Congresswoman Gabbard supporting Trump's impeachment inquiry. So let me read this September 27th, 2019, a statement from her. After looking carefully at the transcript of the conversation with the Ukrainian president, the whistleblower complaint, the inspector general memo, and President Trump's comments about the issue, unfortunately, I believe that if we do not proceed with the inquiry, it will set a very dangerous precedent. Future presidents, as well as anyone in positions of power in the government, will conclude that they can abuse their position for personal gain without fear of accountability or consequences. That last part seems very pertinent to where we are now that she works for Donald Trump and is engaging in the kinds of things that she warned about herself in 2019.
Yeah, well, I think it just underscores just how unprincipled and unethical a lot of these individuals who Trump has appointed to these senior positions actually are. And that's why we recognize the politically corrupt retribution campaign that this Trump administration has engineered. And we have people like Tulsi Gabbard and others who are actually trying to carry this out. But as Liz said, I think, I certainly am relying on the professionalism of those Department of Justice prosecutors, the ones who I had worked with over the course of many years. And, when I've been asked about this case, I said, interview people, uncover the facts. The facts will bring the truth out. And that's where I think you have the professional prosecutors who are doing their job, are being very diligent in trying to understand exactly what happened at this time. I am confident that they are going to see just how fraudulent I think these allegations are. But, when you have people like Jim Jordan on the Hill and others who are making these criminal referrals, there's an obligation on the part of the Department of Justice to follow up on it. But I think a lot of these cases are falling apart.
Really quickly, how strange is it for DNI to send a criminal referral to the DOJ for something that happened so long ago? I assume it doesn't happen often.
No, to my knowledge, it hasn't happened ever before. But this is what they're doing. They're resurrecting things from years ago in order to please Donald Trump.
I'm going to attempt to ask you a question and hope you will answer it, Director Brennan, given the legal situation that you're in. But you've been in this town and in your line of work in public service for decades. And just wondering, how does it make you feel to see that the government you worked for and the ideals that it is supposed to represent and that you served has now turned and is now making you a focal point of attack?
Well, I don't recognize what is happening here in this country. This is not the America that I worked for 33 years in terms of administrations from both political parties. What's very unsettling to me is the message it's sending to the current officers in the intelligence community and law enforcement, whatever, trying to send a chilling sort of signal to them that we can come after you. And, also just the lost opportunity in terms of all of those resources within the Department of Justice that are being dedicated to things like this when we have so many issues and challenges across the board. So I think it's not just a dereliction of duty, but it's just so reckless in terms of what this administration is doing, going after individuals without any real cause, but doing it for political purposes.
Former CIA Director John Brennan, as always, thank you for joining us at the weekend.